Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It is our pre-winter meetings special. Derek and Riper, Eno Saris, Trevor May, and a guest, Brent Rooker, all here today. Very full house as we record this here. Thursday, December 5th is the date of this show. You may hear it sometime around Sunday before the winter meetings. Brent, thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Excited to be here. Always a pleasure to be on anything with Trevor. It's always a blast.
So what are you up to this time of year? What's the main thing you're focusing on in the early part of December coming off of such a great season?
A lot of dad stuff. Got a 3-year-old and got a 3.5-month-old. So it's a lot of dad stuff. As far as baseball goes, I start hitting. I had surgery right after the season. I start hitting again next week, which I'm excited about. Up until now, it's just been a bunch of PT stuff, trying to get back fully healthy, which I am.
What'd you get fixed?
Elbow extensor tendon. So where is it? That guy.
Oh, wow. Got a scar. Looked like a pitcher out there.
Yeah, I know. So got that fixed. PT's been great. Feeling fully healthy. Just normal workouts besides that. Get ready to get rolling, swing the bat next week.
I hate this is like such a loaded term, behind schedule, but are you would you have been somewhere else?
No, I would have been maybe it might be a week later as far as starting hitting than I would have done normally. So it's no kind of delay or behind schedule or anything like that.
How do you can't really approximate game, stuff in the offseason. I always feel like the pitchers have a better time in the offseason because they can pitch design and do all that sort of thing. So how do you do hitting in the off season?
I do velo machine is kind of my way to simulate velocity and to simulate a game type environment. It's really just fastballs, turn that machine up pretty high, try to get the reaction time to being, where it would be with an elite four seamer or whatever. And besides that, for me, it's a lot of flips, it's a lot of, short toss, a lot of dart toss. Some BP mixed here and there, but I'm not a guy who likes I don't do any live at bats before spring training. I know some guys do that. I don't do that. I do hit the machine. Like I said, a lot of fastballs and then some breaking balls mixed in too. So that's my way to simulate a game type environment or a game type pitch, is just kind of use the machine.
Do you track your swings at all so that no,
not really. As far as number of swings or quantity or whatever.
Yeah, I just wonder about fatigue. I mean, pitchers track everything, so they're just
right. No, it's interesting. It's an interesting concept, but no, I'd never have. I'll gradually build up, right? So the first 2 weeks I hit, it's not going to be a ton, and then as I get further and further,
it's more of a feel thing.
Yeah, the quantity will pick up to make sure that my body's ready for spring training and stuff like that.
When we talk to pitchers, they talk a lot about learning a new pitch, trying to design something new in the offseason. That's a lot of now what the offseason looks like for them. And you and I have talked a few times already this offseason, but just to reiterate real quick for those people who haven't heard, it's just about how you're trying to improve a lot of the little kind of minutia parts of your game, working on the strikeout rate a little bit, upping the walk rate, and all those things are trending in the right direction. Going into this offseason, is there anything new that you're implementing in that you think will then produce those kind of improvements in terms of a new drill or maybe just a mindset thing, anything?
No, I think a lot of the things that I want to improve on in a lot of the areas, a lot of the margins, I think I can see improvements. They'll allow me to take more steps forward is going to happen in spring training because it's going to be pretty specific to approach stuff and to game planning stuff and to things that are going to happen in a live game like at bat. So I think a lot of that's going to happen in the spring, which I'm excited about. For me, the offseason, as far as hitting goes, it's just I know my swing when it's at its best place because it has now for 2 years. So it's just ironing out those little things that, when I get off, I know what those causes are. I know what goes wrong in my swing. I have those, 2, 3, or 4 things that I can always go back to and kind of go through a checklist and be like, all right, I don't feel good right now. The swing's not working like I want to. Is it this? No, it's not that. Is it this? No, it's not that. Okay, then it's this. And I can kind of work on ironing those few things out in the offseason just to make sure that when I get to spring training and I get to work on those approach things and those at-bat things in live game situations, then my swing's in the right place and it's where I need it to be to kind of accurately gauge whether or not those approach changes or game plan changes, whatever it is, are being effective and are working.
What are some of those touch points? Is it moving the back? Is it your weight distribution? Is it
A lot of it is things I found last year. Hand position's big for me. When I'm at my best, my hands are launching from honestly higher than what I feel is comfortable. If I'm just standing here like demonstrating a stance or where I put my hands, when I'm going my best, I think they're launching from even a little bit higher than that. So that's going to be a point of emphasis for me. My load or storage or initial move or kind of whatever you want to call it is kind of everything for me. When that's going well, when I'm storing energy properly, when I'm using the ground correctly, when I'm not making like a massive shift backwards towards the catcher, when those things are going right, the rest of my swing kind of tends to take care of itself. So that's a lot of my focus is it's in setup and it's in like my initial move. Whatever it is, the pitcher's leg gets to the top of his leg kick or his hands break or whatever the timing window is, whatever my first move and my load is, kind of often determines how the rest of my swing's going to go.
What information do you like on a day-to-day basis in season to make adjustments, either in preparation for a particular pitcher or if you feel something might be a little bit off with your swing? Like what actually helps along the way?
We, as far as physical stuff goes, me and Bushy, our hitting coach, had a pretty good understanding that unless when I got to the field, if he came up to me and told me he had a swing thing for me, that I was allowed to worry about mechanics. If he didn't say anything about my swing, I was not allowed to worry about mechanics. I wasn't.
That's your metric.
Anything. Wasn't allowed to try to change anything. All I was doing was going and game planning and preparing for the pitcher that night, and that was effective for me because I'm a guy who will get into the weeds a little bit. If I see a small thing, I might try to change that small thing, and then that could honestly end up hurting me more than it helps. So that was kind of our system this year. He was like, look, if I see something in your swing that needs work, I will come find you. If I don't come and find you, you are not allowed to make any mechanical adjustments. And so I knew if he didn't come find me, then I knew, okay, all I'm focusing on today is what this guy's going to try to do to get me out and how I'm going to, combat that to try to have success.
I don't think I asked you this before, but I'm kind of surprised I haven't, but I was looking through your minor league stats, and I mean, I don't really see a big change. Like, you were 30 to 40% better than league average at every stop in the minor leagues, even better than that at some. You hit the ball really hard at each of those stops. You had good patience. Swing and miss has always been a little bit part of your game. I don't see like massive changes in your ground ball, fly ball mix. Was it just opportunity, or were there some things that clicked near the end of your time in the minors that you took over to the A's?
Yeah, I think a big part of it was opportunity. I've made small adjustments here and there, but there was never a point in my career, minor leagues or major leagues, where it's like, okay, I'm just going to completely change what I do and abandon what's gotten me here and abandon the success I've had prior and just make a huge swing change or a huge approach change. Like, that's never happened for me. It was pretty consistent. Like you said, pretty consistent production all the way up the ladder. And then I think 2023 specifically, just getting that opportunity to kind of play every day and get 500 at-bats and kind of find out what I could do was huge. And then once I got that opportunity and I proved to myself that I was good enough to do it, from there, it was just trying to learn. It was learning from those 500 at-bats I got in 2023 to take the next step forward in 2024, and that's what I did. I think it's all about the first opportunity comes, like, you have to prove it to yourself that you can do it, and then the confidence kicks in, and then when the confidence kicks in, you're able to take that next step forward. So, like I said, there's been, pitchers, hitters, whoever it is, we're all making tiny adjustments every single day. I'm making tiny adjustments at bat to bat, pitch to pitch, just based on how I feel or based on whatever I think needs a change. But there's never been like any kind of major swing overhaul, major approach overhaul. It's just been, fine-tuning things here and there and then ultimately waiting to get that opportunity. And thankfully, I was able to take advantage of it when I did.
Yeah, I want to ask you a little bit about Sacramento. And I know that we've talked about it a little bit about how much of your approach can be tailored to the park. You played in the Coliseum and you hit 39 homers last year. So, okay. So, you can't worry about it too much, because if you do worry about it, like, you look at the Coliseum. So how do you think Sacramento is going to change that? Or are you just going to keep saying, you know what, I hit the ball hard. There's not many parks that'll hold it no matter where I am.
Yeah, I'm not going to change anything specifically. I hit the ball in the air a lot already. That's kind of my strength. And I hit the ball hard in the air a lot already. So, like, what are the the variables that lead to doubles and homers, as I already do those things. So I'm just kind of hoping. I'm expecting Sacramento to play about league average. Like, I'm not expecting to show up and it be Cincinnati or be, one of these like tiny parks or something where the ball is just flying around. I think it's going to be about league average, which will be an improvement as far as offensive numbers go from Oakland, because Oakland plays, I think, second to last, only one being more pitcher friendly is San Francisco. But I think if I just continue to keep my same approach and to put the same batted ball metrics out there, that the numbers theoretically should tick up a little bit just because of the park factor.
Have they given you a sense of what your situation will look like as a player? Like in terms of, I know that they're building a new building out there. Have you been able to see it, or they talk to you about what's going to be available to you? I kind of doubt that Oakland is a traject team. Is it a traject team?
I don't know what that is. So
yeah, that's the machine that like
it isn't.
Yeah, I guess that it isn't, but it's supposed to like it gives a hologram of the pitcher.
It's a $200,000 pitching machine.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I have not.
But like in terms of facilities, do you think that have they talked to you at all about that or?
No, I mean, obviously through the Players Association, like we're familiar with the things that needed to be brought up to standard, the things that they're working on. As far as exactly what specifics of that look like, I'm not entirely sure. I think we have had staff go out there and kind of see the plans and things like that and approve everything that's going on. So I don't know specific details, as far as facilities or equipment or things like that goes. But I think we're all pretty confident that it will be, our staff and our players and the Players Association as a whole will do a good job making sure that it's up to par.
Well, I asked because you DH most of the time last year, and the numbers say that that DHs are supposed to be. There's a thing called the DH penalty. It's like the pinch hitter penalty, the DH penalty. Yeah. You're supposed to be 10% worse than you are if you were a position player as a DH. And so that's led to sort of a debate in statistics in sort of analysts about whether or not DHing is a skill. And I come on the side that DHing is a skill, and you have guys like David Ortiz that showed that being like maybe a top step guy and trying to like really anticipate what pitchers are doing to other hitters, staying in the game that way can be a way to stay engaged. But I talked to JD Davis about this, where he's like, if I go down and try to bike to stay warm, right? Then I'm in the dark, basically. And when I come back out, it's all bright, and that's weird. Yeah. But if I stay at the top shelf to stay bright, I might get cold in my body. So what were some of the things? I know that I think the home team, the A's, had a batting cage up by the inside, but the visitors had to go to like center field, I think. So were you in the cage during games?
No, I would like between innings and when we're on defense, I would go to the weight room and kind of pace around a lot, and I'm just like nothing's. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of anxious pacing out of me. That's just my personality, though. I would,
but you have to stay. You have to stay up, right? Like that's part of the skill.
At least I'm moving around, which was a positive. I never hit though. I didn't take any swings between the bats. I didn't go to the cage. So I stayed out of the cage because I didn't want to take swings. But I walk around a lot. I'll go just ride a bike for 2 minutes, throw a med ball around, just like to keep moving and stay loose. And then I spent a lot of time on the iPad watching sequences, watching not just my previous at bats, but the rest of our lineup's previous at bats to see if I could find anything, find any sequences, find any tendencies or whatever it was, and then to use for my benefit, and then as well to relay to the rest of the guys who are out playing defense who don't get the opportunity to watch as many at bats as I had the opportunity to. So I thought that was beneficial, and that's how I occupied my time. I don't like. I mean, especially, the dugouts in Oakland are so small, too. Like, if you're sitting there, like, you can't move. So I don't like just sitting there being stagnant. So I would walk up the stairs, go to the weight room, and just kind of move around up there for a little bit.
Just keeping the blood flowing. That seems like it's really important.
Not get stagnant, not get tight, and that whole thing.
So we know you are a big advocate of finding great breakfast. Are there any breakfast spots that are already on your radar with the move to Sacramento? No, I haven't looked into it, but I'm excited to. That'll be a good benefit of a new city is getting to try out some new restaurants, which I love doing. So I'm excited to do that. I need to start looking into it though. Did you have a top meal from 2024 anywhere on the road, anywhere you went?
You had the whole chain.
Huge
that you
chain,
had of
yeah.
breakfast,
What was the number? What was the best
I'm
one?
trying to think specifically what the best one I had last year was. I have to go back and look at the list because I did the list in 2023 too, and they kind of just like weld together for me. And I can't remember which one was which one. I had the peanut butter stuffed French toast in San Diego at that cafe I went to. It was really good though. That was a good one.
That's what we love. We got a lot of listeners
Cafe,
that
I don't know
games on the road.
Cafe and then like 3 numbers, or cafe and then 4 numbers. I don't remember what the numbers were, but that place is good.
There you go. That's the answer.
You've got some homework on for Sacramento. And the last thing I wanted to ask you was just what kind of homework you're doing now in terms of what are you reading? Are you watching the winter meetings, coverage? Are you listening, the A's just signed Severino? Are you looking for movement on your team? Are you just a fan of the league? Are you, what sort of stuff are you reading during the off season when you're reading about baseball?
I read a lot. I scroll Twitter probably too much. But I mean, a lot of my algorithm is just baseball stuff, so I appreciate it. I like the cycle of the offseason, seeing where guys are going to end up, seeing how, one signing affects another signing, or one trade affects this trade, or kind of seeing how all those pieces fall together. That's exciting for me. I think right now, I'm like everybody else trying to see where Soto is going to go and what that number is officially going to be. And I think it's going to be pretty crazy and deserve.
Is it harder at all though? Because you are a player, like your future could be on the line. Like you might actually see something on the ticker that's like, oh God, like,
yeah, it's true.
What? I got to
move.
No,
it's like your brain kind of, it's like when I'm scrolling and reading this stuff, you kind of just become a fan. You kind of, I don't know. And obviously the Severino signing is super exciting, and kind of seeing how moves I think are going to affect us as a team is interesting to me too. And I'm excited about that move. I think he's going to help us a ton, and it's one more step towards, I think, what we believe is a chance to be pretty competitive next year. So I like keeping up with all of it. The winter meetings seem like they're going to be pretty chaotic. It seems like kind of as soon as Juan decides where he's going to go, things are going to start to fall into place, and that sounds fun to keep up with. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, we'll hoping for that. We'll be
metrics. There. You read about metrics sometimes. Like, did you think any of the new metrics that have come out recently, will affect how you think about the game, or will affect how players?
What are the new ones? What are the new ones?
I mean, bat speed came out this year.
Oh, like those, yeah. No,
that's not so new to a player though, because like y'all been using blast motion, and like it's not.
Yeah, right. No, I like the added bars on the Baseball Savant pages. That makes it more aesthetic. and it gives me a bigger
more red for you, right?
Yeah. Mine are either really red or really blue. I got to work on getting this.
That's right.
No, I like the added stuff. I'm pretty on record. I like knowing as much information as there is available. I know a lot of guys aren't like that. Probably most guys aren't like that, but like, I think it's beneficial for me, and it's something that I enjoy. So the more stuff we can come up with to quantify, I'm down for it.
Well, Brent, we appreciate the time. We'll let you get back to dad mode here and enjoy the rest of your off season. Look forward to seeing what you do with the A's shift over to Sacramento this year.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
Sure. Always great to catch up with folks in the off season, and Brent Rooker, a great follow on Twitter if you're still over there. I think there's like a handful of accounts that are still worth following on Twitter. So nice to have them in your feed if you're still there.
Very nicely said, by the way. Yes,
it's a short list. It's a very short list, but hey, what can you do?
Generally, it's a wasteland when I go over there. But
it's as bad as it's ever, dude.
It's like you open the app and you like hear audible screaming. It's like, what happened?
The first video is just some crazy thing that isn't real.
Yeah, right.
Most of it's just not real. You're just like, dude, that didn't happen. I don't know. I don't like it here.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to go to a place.
And speaking of screaming, let's talk about the Hall of Fame.
We're going to go to the comment section, and we're going to go to social media to talk about the Hall of Fame ballots and this year's class. And it's kind of funny. Eno sent me this on Slack the other day. If you're watching on YouTube, you could see it. And if you ever wondered, if you never noticed that you didn't follow, Ryan Thibodeau or the accounts that actually like put ballots up, if you've never seen the ballot for the Hall of Fame, it is one of the saddest documents that matters to people that exists. It is more boring than a W-2. Like it is, it has no creative juice behind it whatsoever. I mean, it is literally a list of 28 names in 3 columns with a Microsoft Word 3D checkbox next to each one.
Like
way too close to the word.
Yeah, the box is a character right next to the first letter of the player's name.
What are we voting on here? Like the senior or like middle school 8th grade class president?
Honestly, Trevor, I think that's exactly what it looks like. I think there was a student council that I lost an election for, and the ballot looked exactly like this because everyone was so bored they just circled the first 12 names they could get and threw it in the garbage. Like that's what happened. I don't know why it looks like that. Probably a money thing, but someone out there who has the creative ability should design a nice looking Hall of Fame ballot and just get that. It should be a little gold leafing on the top. I mean, this is it's a big deal. It should be a cool thing. It should be an honor to even be on there. Just to get your name on the ballot is such a cool thing. And it just looks like an ordinary piece of garbage that shows up in the mail. Now, it is a nice honor to be voting, I mean, like I don't think you were sending me that to like dunk on the process. It's more just like, why does this piece of paper look so boring? There's no reason for it to be this way. But are there particularly tough cases in this year's class? You got 14 first-timers, guys like Ichiro, CC Sabathia, Dustin Pedroia, Ian Kinsler, Felix Hernandez, among a few others. You got a few holdovers that were over 50% of the vote last year with Billy Wagner, Andrew Jones, Carlos Beltran, a couple guys that are under 35% that have cases, and Alex Rodriguez and Manny Ramirez. Who are the toughest cases for you as you think about checking those lovely boxes to send in that ballot?
Well, I have some ins that are just like, this is a lot of my sort of adult fandom too. Like it's not quite players that I've covered yet, just beginning to be players that I've covered, but these are players that I watched, and so there's a little bit of sniff test, if you can believe it. I know I'm a stat guy, but there's a little bit of sniff test with these guys, and the numbers I think just really do it. So CC, Pettit, Beltran, Wagner, and Ichiro are just I feel really good about that. I don't even have to investigate it too hard. Like I'm just like, those guys were Hall of Famers. Like I just I know that Pettit has that one thing on his record, but it was human growth hormone, and I'm not a doctor, but it just doesn't feel like as bad as some of the other transgressions that we've had on the record, so it's not nandosterone or whatever, it's not one of the old Russian block.
Oh yeah, the old 80s Olympic steroids. Yeah. Those are the best steroids.
Yeah, says Derek Van Riper confidently.
I never used them. Yeah, sure. They had the best names. They're the funniest ones.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm in on those guys, and I think the hard thing for me is that there's so many next level guys. I want to put like 15 names down. And this is where I know we just had this on The Athletic. I know that I depart a little bit from maybe fandom written with a big F, because Levi Weaver just did a thing on The Athletic where he asked people to vote, and they voted one guy in, Ichiro.
How they come to that conclusion?
I don't know. I think it has something to do with, like, you see this Hall of Fame and it has like Babe Ruth and Willie Mays in it. And so you're like, I need to compare all these people to Babe Ruth and Willie Mays and like these all-time greats. And I think they're missing the fact that the Hall of Fame can have different tiers. You can have A, B, and C. And also, we have to have the Willie Mayses of our time. Like you can't just look against, and especially when it comes to pitchers, you cannot be comparing today's starting pitchers to guys that had 350 innings a season and pitched 35 games or whatever, 40 games a season, and had like 20 complete games. Like it's just not, you're not gonna ever vote another starting pitcher in again. And another thing you can do is you can look and historically say, okay, 1.5%. That has been what we voted in, 1.5%. Now, it used to be a little bit over 1.5%, and since 1960, it's been under 1%. So the people who are thinking it's getting diluted, I don't think that they have the right idea. we're actually voting fewer people in. And I think that's because we're putting them up against the standards of another time. So, I saw this idea from Tom Tango, and, maybe what we should do is compare players to players that were born in their decade. So 5 years before and 5 years after. And this is really important for Félix Hernández, because if you look at Félix Hernández, against all pitchers, he comes up short. You look at Jaws, which is Jay Jaffe's great metric, or you look at WAR, or whatever you look at, you'll be like, Félix is good, but he wasn't great. I don't know, man. That does not fit with my fandom. Like, I was like, Félix Hernández is one of the greats. He pioneered a pitch. Like, the power change was like, that's Félix Hernández's pitch. And he was so great in his peak that, let me tell you, when you do this and you look at pitchers that were born 5 years before him and 5 years after him, and you put them on, let's just do WAR right now, because that's what we've got, and you put them on this list, this is how the list looks around his age. Justin Verlander, Hall of Famer. Clayton Kershaw, Hall of Famer. Max Scherzer, Hall of Famer. Zach Greinke, Hall of Famer for me. Félix Hernández, Hall of Famer for me. Chris Sale, Hall of Famer. Cole Hamels. Now you're starting to get where it's a little bit harder. Hamels, Wainwright, Lester Cole. But if you go to the top six, if you're the top six of a decade, you're in that 1%. You're in that. You should be a Hall of Famer. If you're in the top 10 for your decade, I think you should be in the Hall of Fame for your position. And that fits for a lot of these guys, and I think that's a good argument for Félix. It's a good argument for Brian McCann and Russell Martin, who are two of the best framers of all time. And yes, their offense isn't great, but that's going to make them hard to vote on. Is like, this is a defensive package. It's almost like voting in a shortstop that was great at defense. Utley would be top 10 in his time. Bobby Abreu is also hard because he's 15th in his time, but it's outfielders. So really, it should be more, right? It should be like the top 30 or something for outfielders. So, Abreu, top 15 outfielder of his decade. And I know he wasn't an MVP guy any one year, but he was basically like the 8th best player in baseball for like year over year for 6 years in a row. So those are the kind of the hardest players to do. We're going to be dealing with this more and more often as we go forward. Pitchers with smaller volume, even big peak, short career position players like Chase Utley. These are players that do things that we didn't measure back in the day. So if we think that that Russ Martin was one of maybe the best framer of all time, we don't know it. So it's kind of hard to vote him in being you're the best framer of all time. You're getting on that. I don't know. We don't have framing for 90% of the history of baseball. Yeah. So that's just my short screed. It's like I want to put most of those guys in because they've passed this 1% test in their decades. But I also understand what other people say when they say Russ Martin had a 750 OPS. Like, how are you putting him in?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think, Trevor? I mean, someone who played with a lot of these guys that are on the ballot or played against them, many of them too. It's like, does the elite skill like the one you described, framing, something like that, can that propel a case? I think we've talked a little bit about relievers in the past on this show and how they have to clearly be graded differently. Like nothing about modern relievers is like what historical reliever usage was like, and they're an important part of the game. That's undeniable. So the criteria has to shift along with it. But do you agree that maybe elite defense needs to be graded differently and thought of differently when these ballots come out?
Well, there's a guy going to be available soon for the ballot that is definitely going to need that if he wants to be considered. And I think a lot of people are going to shoo him in, and that's Yadier Molina. And he's left-handed. He's the catching is the thing. Mm-hmm. Catching was the thing with him. We're going to have to quantify that. And honestly, catching has been one of those positions where I think there is more leeway. Different types of guys can get in, because if we're going based on offense, it's like Johnny Bench, and then that's it. So, and then we have to like figure it, and then everyone else is like later in the game they switch to a different position, like Joe Mauer. Like no one sticks to catching as long as he did either. So, what I think the big thing is, I think this year is maybe the best example. Now we are now seeing guys going on the ballot where there is a very distinct that the change in the game is starting to be noticed, like that 2016, 17, 18, when like Andrew Jones is like five All-Star games in a row, or not Andrew Jones, sorry, Adam Jones, 5 All-Star games in a row. 3 years later, 33. They're like, nah, we don't know who wants to have him on their team.
That's too, like the game itself said it wasn't giving you the chances. So like they weren't letting
30 years
you
ago,
play.
he would have been able to hang on for 5 more years. They would have kept just signing 1-year deals, and would that have watered down stats? Yeah, but he would have had longevity. So longevity is kind of just going away. Like we talk about Buster Posey. Buster Posey has 11 years, but everyone's like, oh, he got 3 World Series rings. I mean, like but like the longevity
he didn't get to 2,000 hits, which is almost like a prerequisite for getting into the Hall.
And look how many guys on this list don't have a 2,000 hits or aren't even close. And so the standards are going to change in a big way. And I love what you said about Andrew Jones. I just want to point this out, and this will probably put it in perspective for a lot of the people out there that love baseball right now. If we're saying, well, there's not, no MVPs or no this, that's a comparative thing to everyone who played at the same time as them. So if you're telling me that if Jose Ramirez goes out and puts up 5 more years, Jose Ramirez years in a row, but still keeps his being like 7th on the MVP voting, and he's not a Hall of Famer now because he never won one, though he's a great player with 350 home runs and 250, 2,500 hits or whatever he gets to, but he didn't get that. Like, you have to compare it to the people that are around them. And now we're seeing, like, with the Ben Zobrist and the Curtis Grandersons and the Troy Tulowitzkis, like, these guys, had they played 18 years, might have been able to get to these numbers, but they're all playing 11 years now. So you have to take that stuff into account. But for me, I think Ichiro is one of the guys, because 3,000 hits, like, just a classic, like, he comes up, he's getting a hit, and everyone assumes he is going to. I think CC's, again, a shoe-in. Honestly, there's some things about CC's career that are actually surprising. I didn't know his career ERA was that high. I didn't know he walked that many guys. I didn't know he had a 1.26 whip.
Well, and that's partially because he actually did have the late tail,
the longevity. Yeah,
he hung around, and he spent a lot of time in a hitter-friendly ballpark.
ERA worse.
Yeah. So if you look
10 years of your career at the end of Yankee Stadium.
If you look at his stats versus Félix, had Félix thrown 700 more innings and like did what CC did and hung on, and it happened the same way, we would be like, yeah, he's in. But he would have been less. The what he put on was worse than what he did. But now he's shoo-in because he played long enough. I just feel like people are like, that's not enough stuff, and we got to start getting away from that. And I love that the decade thing is a great idea, just because no one's going to be. No one wants to do that for that long, and they're not given the opportunities, because that's not how decisions are made anymore. It's not based on your name. If Greg Maddux came and his last 3 years he couldn't get under a 4.5, and he hung on, he would have been released by a team now, and people think that's not possible because it's Greg. It would have been had he played now, because the way he is and how hard he threw and whatever, he would just not be given the opportunity. That's not an indictment on him at all. That's just the way it is. So this is such an interesting conversation, because the wide range, like Torrey Hunter is maybe the last guy who really just had that 20-year career, like on this list, the last one since 2015, to have that much longevity.
And it was good defense and
10 straight gold gloves.
I'm just not sure it was enough bat for me to vote.
He doesn't have 800 OPS.
Yeah.
For his career. I feel like that's kind of where I'm feeling like you're getting
unless you're
outside.
A catcher, maybe a shortstop, like, is a very, very important. But he was a center fielder, so it's like,
you're the center. If you're a shortstop, honestly, if you're a shortstop, a center fielder, or a catcher, you have to produce. You have to be elite in something. Like, it's got to be ridiculous. You have to be ridiculous, and defense might be his thing. But in terms of like hits, he got 2,500 hits. Like, nobody else is close. Like, everyone else is like 1,400. So you can't compare them with that. So we have to get creative here. But I feel like the shift is happening. But I also think that in 10 years, it'll be a much more evened out. I just think we're in this window where a huge shift is going to start showing up on these ballots, with some older guys still on, like, for example, like Billy Wagner. Like, put him in. He's like
just get over.
Like top 5 closers of all time, guys. It's not close. Fernando Rodney. I love Fernando Rodney. He's got an entire run on top of Francisco Rodriguez. An entire run on his ERA. I know it doesn't matter for relievers, but that's a lot.
Yeah,
that's a leaky closer. So they're not even the same for me. Those two guys. But it's nice he's on there. Good for him.
There's still like, small hall versus big hall, which I guess you could go between 1 and 1.5%, and what's interesting with Bobby Abreu is just how borderline he is. So even if you compare him to his peers, I've got 1,042 players born in his decade that played in baseball and had more than 50 plate appearances. So if you've got 1,042 and you want 1.5%, that means you're voting in 16 guys. Well, this is 10 plus among those guys, because the top is Alex Rodriguez, Chipper Jones, Adrian Beltre, Ken Griffey Jr., Derek Jeter. Yes, we voted all those guys in. Scott Rowland, 6th in his time. Yeah, we voted him in. Ivan Rodriguez, Carlos Beltran is 9, Andrew Jones is 10, Manny Ramirez, Jim Edmonds is 12, Chase Utley is 13, Bobby Abreu is 14, Ichiro is 15, Lance Berkman is 16. So I think that's why Bobby Abreu is just, even given all the stuff we've said, he's still just right there where, he wasn't a great defender, but he did have a go to on base percentage, but he, and he did run, but he was 30% better than league average with a stick, but it wasn't better than that. And should he need to be better than that to have the bad glove? So I think he's right on the line. And I've supported him and I voted for him. But this year, this is such a crowded ballot too, which what you're saying with all these new guys on it, that sometimes there's just ballot machinations where I'm like, last year I voted for Abreu, but this year I have only 10 spots, and I need to figure out what my best 10 is, and it may just
you don't want to waste a pick on someone who's not going to get, and there's a lot of that, which is, I'm sure.
Should I vote for someone to make sure they stay on the ballot? Because they have to have 5% to stay on the ballot. Am I worried that, in my next group, Russ Martin, am I worried that Russ Martin or Brian McCann won't make it to 5%, And should I vote for them over Abreu to keep them on the ballot longer? I don't know. I don't want to think that way. It's a little bit too strategic. I'd like to just be like in or out. But if you give me 10 spots and I think really I'd like to vote for 14 guys, then like I have to start making some decisions like that.
I think there's also, there's like that being caught in the middle of, do you want these guys off the ballot because they deserve to be in, because then we can keep the line moving? Or do you want to keep guys on the ballot so they don't fall off because they deserve a case and people aren't seeing and hearing that case yet, right? So you're kind of stuck making a ballot that's not necessarily the 10 you definitely want in right now. It's like, okay, let's get these 3 or 4 in over the hump, and let's make sure these 2 or 3 guys are still here to have their cases get elevated in the years ahead, even if they're not going to get in this year.
Think about like Tim Raines, right? Like he got in like the last year of his eligibility, I think. There are guys like, think about Billy Wagner. Like, why is it taking so long? It's just, people argue things, there are ballots around. I think there are some people that I think we're getting less and less of, fewer voters that put in like empty ballots. And an empty ballot is bad because that's a 0 vote, right? And you have to have 75% of all ballots. So, an empty ballot makes it really hard for somebody to get in. And there are people like that. And I think some of the steroid stuff will also, once that is cleaned out, that gets, like, for example, I don't think I want to vote for Manny and A-Rod because of that legacy. That opens up 2 spots for me. As that gets cleared up, more people will have spots that they feel like they can dedicate to this. So you kind of, what if we keep Russ on there and then there's a shallow year and people start looking at him more and like, man, he was a great framer. Maybe he should be in, or maybe he shouldn't be in, but maybe he should also make it past the first 5%, because that's something that people, that's a badge of honor too.
Mm-hmm. This is all, it's always to me, it's a very nuanced conversation. Doesn't always turn out that way in all the social channels, but it's a lot of factors to take into consideration with these groups each and every year. You outlined a few really good, tough cases. I was surprised Chase Utley only had 28.8% of the votes last year. He seems closer to a guy that is an obvious Hall of Famer to me than a lower guy that's going to take a few years to potentially climb up. What do you think about Utley's case, Trevor? Do you think that's closer to being an easy in than it is he has to wait 5 years to get in?
Yeah, I feel like he should, especially with the position he played. He's right. He's in line with a lot of second basemen, especially and a much ahead of them in a lot of power numbers. He was a guy could hit for power. He did a lot of things really, really well. He had the longevity, 64.5 WAR. He's like the first guy behind the Manny Beltran and Rodriguez group. So it's like 28.8 seems low, and I think there's a little bit of the recency, like, oh, he played in the recent. We don't have the nostalgia thing going on with him. And the thing we remember is his the being with the Dodgers and but like the winnings with the Phillies, they had an incredible lineup and he was there with all the group. You don't think of just Chase Utley though. You think of Ryan Howard and Shane Victorino and Jimmy Rollins all with him, right? Yeah. So he gets a little bit lost in shuffle, I think, with just the people he is associated with when he was one of the best, if not the best all-around longevity player of all those guys. With maybe Rollins is it's a little bit more up in the air there. But so I would say, yes, I would say he should be a guy that's much higher on that list just because of the production. And it was for a long time, and it was with the same team for a very long time. And if you ask any Phillies fans, they're just like, oh yeah, easily. And he's got the World Series. He's got all the accolades you need. I don't know what else. I don't know what else people need. I think that they're just like, no, what we need is 3,000 hits. I'm like, well, it's not 1980, so we're just we haven't had one of those.
With batting average
in a long time
away too. I think that's 3,000 hits can be hard to get to. He also, he had this bad knees a little bit. He stuck around, but he just wasn't as good, in the later years. I think because of the bad knees. So. Yeah, I don't know.
It's gonna hurt Pujols. It shouldn't hurt Pujols, and he was.
Yeah,
he was basically a walking. Like he needed a walker for 3 years there, and he should still be in the Hall of Fame because he had the best 10 years probably ever. So
there's just no traditional benchmark, that Utley hits. 259 homers, 1,900 hits, basically, 1,000 RBI. It's I think there's some of it is also a transition from some old school metrics and some new ones that's always happening over the course of baseball. So
yeah, it does seem like we're in between eras right now, both with the people who are voting and with how we're viewing the players on the ballot, kind of caught between a little bit of the past and moving into where baseball is right now. Speaking of the future and things that are getting people upset, have you met a person in real life who likes the golden at bat idea? I think of all. What? You met someone?
No, I am one. No. I like it for a very niche reasons. But I understand how it's just silly. But like, there's some scenarios where I'm like, if that came up though, as a reliever, I'm like, let's do it. So there's we got pretty creative with like how you could like make it a trade-off, or how you can like use your challenges. You have to have challenges available to use it. Like you create a currency that you have to use to do I don't know. There's interesting game mechanics that can be built off this that make it really hard to pull off. But if you do, so it's really rare. I want it to be rare. If it's rare, okay. I'm much more open to it. Where a lot of things have to go right.
What if we tied to the pitcher thing, and if your starting pitcher goes 7 or something, then you unlock the golden batter.
So we're blowing up more elbows and shoulders just to get one big swing at the end of the game.
Or if you have the golden AB, the 3-batter rule goes out of the window, so they can bring anybody in to face him.
And reliever can come in to face the
okay. And then you're going to be able to project. Or this is what I liked it. This is my favorite part. And obviously this would never be how it would work, but like say in the World Series, right? And you're like, we're going to walk Mookie to get to Freddie to get the good matchup. Like you can just wipe it out. So like you try to take basically
Mookie's our golden at bat. So you got Mookie again.
What they say is, 4, put him on. They're taking the bat out of his hands, and the team's like, no, we're putting it back in his hands. Go back, you're hitting. So you just cancel it. You cancel out a intentional walk. You can't intentionally walk him right now. You have to face him. Like that is more of a usable thing. Like that blocking an intentional walk to avoid it later in the game. That's interesting to me, especially when it's a team who has like one bopper that you can just pitch around.
And I don't know that I love the idea from a specific standpoint, but I like the idea of playing around with baseball and changing some of the rules. I'm generally pro rule changes because I think, it's a game that we play. When I play Catan with my kids, or when I play different games with my kids, sometimes we have house rules because that's just how we like to play, and we'll change things over time because it's so boring when Felix just hogs all the wheat or whatever, and like, you know what I mean? It's like there's
you said wheat, right?
Yeah. the house, but there are house rules that become canon, like in Monopoly. Like you're not supposed to get money, and there's no money for landing on free parking in the rules or something. But like there are some things that now people play that were never in the original rules.
Yeah, you can't find it in the rule book, and we just all assume it's a rule.
Right. Because the person you played with the most growing up at their house, it was a rule. Very much a house rule sort of game. That's how Monopoly tends to go. Okay, so this is the reason why we brought this up on the show, though. The golden at bat in and of itself generally dumb and not going to happen. And maybe it's a thing we see in the All-Star game at most. It seemed like that's where the players that were interviewed.
Nobody's ever heard of it. The golden at bat is the idea is that you could take a batter and you could just put a batter outside of the batting order, just put him in.
Right, just so, like someone could hit twice in a row, or any scenario where you can put the hitter you want.
We know Bobby Witt just struck out, but Bobby Witt's back up again.
Yeah, right, stuff like that. Or it's Verdugo's up at the game on the line, and you're going to go to Soto instead, or Judge, or whatever. So
when they can't be on base, and
right, you could have different restrictions and different limitations.
I think it very much would have to be limited to 7, 8, 9 too.
Yeah, end game only.
It would be so stupid if people were just, oh, well, the bases are loaded and our 9 hitters up, and we're just going to put Ohtani in because we want a grand slam here and we want to break the game open. That's not as fun.
I do like to take the intentional walk away scenario.
Uno reverse card. They get on the card, they throw on the field. I think that's awesome because then you have to force the at bat. That I hate it when like we're anticipating this at bat and first is open, and then they just walk them.
Yeah, that does suck. And it's also, is it baseball-y? It's not very baseball-y. It's not action. It's not. It's inaction.
You can break my order, but I can't break my own order. That's not cool.
Yeah.
Exactly. You can take the bat out of hands. What if you had an ability to put bat in hands? Maybe that doesn't mean grabbing them out of the dugout, make them go hit again. But maybe it's you can't skip him.
Yeah, or just a simple skip. Instead of going to anyone you want, you just skip to the next batter. So, you choose between your 8 and your 9 hitter. If it happens to be your 9 hitter, it's your 9 and your 1.
That hurts if you're the guy who gets skipped. Then guys are going to be keeping track. How many times have I been skipped this year?
Well, you're there. You're trying to get to the Hall of Fame with your glove anyway. So you feel good about it, right?
Yeah.
You're one of those players. That's the story you got to tell yourself, I think.
I know that. I mean, it's getting too close to bases are florps, and if you hit this circle, you get 3 runs, kind of stuff that I don't think we want. But I my kids really like the Savannah Bananas, and they pushed it closer to bases are florps kind of idea, where you're catching balls. If you catch a foul ball, it's an out, and like all sorts of kind of crazy ass rules, and my kids really liked it,
Fun.
And I'm not saying that baseball needs to be Savannah Bananas, but there's some energy there that you can capture. Also, I have never heard I've watched basketball a fair amount. I've never heard them talk about baseball on a basketball cast before. And I was watching a Warriors game, I think it was, and they just started talking about the golden at bat. And I was like, whoa. I mean, if you think about baseball in the pantheon of other sports, the one thing that baseball can't do is put the ball in LeBron James's hands with, 5 seconds left in the game. They cannot say, Pat Mahomes, get us we need a touchdown. They can't just do that. And that's part of baseball. I know people at baseball said like, we have all these heroes, from our past that Aaron freaking Boone, like we have all these heroes of people that were unexpected heroes, and that's part of baseball's DNA. So I get both sides of it, but I can see where this came from, which is that a jealousy of other sports of being like, man, your stars get the ball at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Well, you get to do it on the pitching side to some degree, like using the reliever you want.
Yeah.
But not being able to do it on the hitting side is where this sort of originates. I mean, we're like my first baseball memory is Francisco Cabrera in the NLCS, like an extremely unlikely hero who has a place in baseball history, at least in Braves fandom, forever because
Sid
of
Bream
an unlikely outcome.
third. Oh my
Sid
God.
Bream on no
legs,
knees. It hurts watching him run the bases.
I feel like the things that I'm more open to, I'm trying to be. Obviously, I don't play anymore. If I'm a reliever, like I just got off foul territory before this show, and we had Blake trying it on. I brought it up. He's like, "Get out of here with that." He's basically like, "Shut up. That's stupid."
He's like, "I don't want to face Soto twice in a row.
I'll walk the bases loaded before I have to face Soto twice. Like, screw this. I'll walk him again. You can have 2 base runners then. I don't
double walk.
So, but the big thing for me has always been like, can it be like, instead of having robo umps, let's do challenges. So there's like a skill and like it's a strategy now. You have to choose when you're using them. It's a finite resource. If it were one of those things, we were a way to get some version of this where a manager and the team savvy will come out because they made a good decision, or they had to take away from somewhere else to use something else just to get a slight advantage in this specific situation. I like that. That's competitive. That's strategy, and that's having an ace in the hole, and then you can create your own little identities. Like I think like Mike Schilt would like he'd be like, okay, so we're gonna use it for this.
Wouldn't their golden at bat be Luis Arias so many times? Because it's like all we need is a ball and play.
He would. But even like the inverse, the other team, right? But then we're going to use, if it were Uno reverse, right? If you could Uno reverse them,
then we're always going to use
somebody
lefty reliever for one against Arias.
Or if the 3-batter rule goes away, just whenever the golden bat comes up, then you're just warming guys up that probably won't go in. There's a whole other thing. But like if that were a thing, it'd be really interesting to see how that's anticipated. So I just think that it opens
more
up
strategy, more ways to win, like it opens up more, things.
But we don't want to break the game.
Like nobody opens up Catan. Everyone knows exactly what everyone's trying to do.
We don't want Aaron Judge to end the year with 850 at bats and 85 home runs, and then you're like, oh, he can't.
I have no idea how to compare this to other years.
he hits 6 or 7 times every day. Like, no. Now he's the greatest player ever.
Let's take an old video game thing here. How about a free guy, an extra strike? So you like one time per game, you can get just one extra strike. So you strike out and you like wave your hand like, no, we're going to use it right now. I get one more. And the pitcher's standing out there like,
I just got him out.
Whatever. Make sure it pisses pitchers off. That's
you're definitely always going to piss pitchers off. Come on, Trevor. You had your issues with the clock, dude.
I'd be like, oh yeah, I forgot. Like, really, all I want the reverse card so that they could just stop telling me to intentionally walk people. So I'm like, no, go back.
You're right. I didn't want to do that either. I wanted to face him too.
I mean, you still have to just go up there and throw pretty non-competitive pitch. You could still walk them, right? It's just
that's true. Yeah, that's what Blake said.
Yeah. So, I don't know. None of this is going to happen. So just like relax. If you see stories about it, you're mad that we talked about it, take a breath. It's all going to be okay. We have a game lined up for today. It might be the last one of 2024. But how about a name that dude? We haven't done this in a while. You guys down for this?
Yeah. I can't believe I ever won one of these.
Yeah, I forget the all-time tally. I think you might be even all time. I'm gonna have to go back and check the history books on this one. We get some really detailed records of who's dominated Name That Dude in its young existence. So here we go. The rules are pretty simple. I have a series of clues about a mystery player. Eno and Trevor can get one guess each after any particular clue. If they don't get it, we keep going through all the clues. If I get through all my clues, which will not happen, I don't know. I win a prize. I don't know what the prize is yet. It's never happened. I'm not really that worried about it. So Name that dude. I was born on this day, December 5th is the day we're recording this, in 1972 in Chicago, Illinois. Any guesses? I just like the wild
Christian
guesses.
Yelich.
No.
I know it's his birthday today.
LA, dude.
It is his birthday today, but it wasn't 72.
Oh, you did?
He wasn't born in 1972. That'd be amazing. No guess? Eno's making a great face right now, though. This YouTube.
That's the face I make.
The roof.
That's the face I make when I'm thinking.
It's thinking real hard. All right, next clue. I was drafted by the Expos 14th overall out of high school in the 1991 draft, and I made my major league debut on September 18th, 1993. That's pretty fast for a high school player to get to the big leagues in the early 90s.
That is.
Just over 2 years. Any guesses?
Gentleman is 53 years old.
You said he was drafted by who?
The Expos.
Yeah.
14th overall out of high school, 1991.
Larry Walker.
No. Trevor, want to guess?
Drafted by the Rockies.
All the big, I just keep thinking of Latin guys.
No. Okay. We'll keep moving.
He's not Latin. Got it.
My playing career ended in 2009, and I finished my career with 233 home runs, 148 stolen bases, and a 278, 358, 482 line over 17 seasons.
Juice.
Who was the guy who was traded for Pedro?
Yeah, he's in his head now. No guesses yet?
Who was the guy who traded Pedro? The second baseman.
Tell you. I can't.
Delino de Shields.
No, it's not Delino de Shields.
That was a good guess too.
It's a fun guess though. Pretty close in era. I think that's like similar time for baseball card purposes. Okay, next clue. In addition to the Expos, I made appearances with the Padres, Rays, Cubs, Mets, Red Sox, and Marlins.
Oh my God, journeyman.
Yeah, turned into
Power
one.
and speed. Drafted by the Expos.
Still stumped. All right. I finished 5th in the NL Rookie of the Year vote in 1994 and made the NL All-Star team in 2001.
Okay. Hold on. Give me a second. This is obvious. It's got to be. Who is it? Gotta think of my Expos. Ooh.
I don't know any Expos.
Still frozen. I'll give you another clue while you're thinking about it. I might be the only player in the Baseball Reference database without a nickname, but I was involved in multiple trades that included the likes of, and here's a trip down memory lane, Dustin Hermanson, Claudio Vargas, Graham Lloyd, Mike Mordecai, Carl Pavano, Sung Song, and Sun Woo Kim.
Kim?
Okay, so it's
High school.
who was the shortstop during that time?
Still no guesses. Okay. I think this is going to put it over the top. I think one of you guys is going to get it here. In the years since my career ended, I have been a regular host on shows on MLB Network and MLB Network Radio, Fox Sports Florida broadcasts, Marquee Sports Network, Apple TV Plus broadcasts.
Al Leiter?
Nope.
No, he said homers and stolen bases.
Oh yeah, you're right. That's a pitcher.
It's not Granderson. It's not
all over media.
Mark DeRosa is a Brave. As a
Carlos Pena either.
who's that? He's all over media.
Dude, how?
Oh my God! What?
What else can I tell you about this player?
No. They should be able to get this. MLB Network. There's the limited amount of guys on MLB Network.
TV and radio. He's done both.
Harold Reynolds?
No. He's also done some stuff on the Fantasy Channel, actually. I did a broadcast with this guy once.
What the? Who? What other players? Yonder Lawn's not him.
It's not Yonder. It's not the mayor. God, who is it? I'm so embarrassed. You're gonna have to tell us. We both get a zero.
I think I have to tell you. I think you guys lose. It's Cliff Floyd.
Oh God! Of course, it's Cliff Floyd.
It's Cliff Floyd.
How did I not think of Cliff Floyd? Oh, I'm so embarrassed.
They even got me during a live interview. He was standing behind me, and they got me to talk live on TV. And I've never met
embarrassed. I'm so sorry, Cliff.
Wow.
Oh my God.
It's our bet.
Oh, power and speed.
Oh, you know what it was? You're 53. You look like you're 40, bro. That's what it was.
There you
That's
go.
what I thought.
Turn it
So,
into a compliment.
There was some year, one of the years we were in Arizona for our baseball conference. He was working for the Sirius XM Fantasy Channel, and they sent him out there to help analyze a November draft. So he was just sitting next to me and doing the analysis, and looked at him like, man, you still look like you could play. Like he just
he looks good.
Dude, him and LaTroy Hawkins could just go run it back.
Unreal. But really good career overall. Happy 52nd birthday to Cliff Floyd.
God, I cannot believe it.
You probably, all three of us probably had that baseball card on screen right now.
I definitely did. I know I did for sure.
definitely had that Topps rookie
Expos,
card.
man. Expos.
You know what I need to do? I need to do a little bit of some guy practice where I just look through team rosters.
Just gonna go read.
I used to have a
old
baseball
books.
almanac that I would just sit in the back of the car and look at.
Read some of them. Yeah.
Also, I needed to point one last thing out. If we're talking about little tidbits here, we feel so bad, Ian Kinsler, for your 1,999 hits. That sucks. Sorry, man.
You know, there's
one more up.
This comes from the guy who made sure to point out that Brent hit 39.
I was like 39?
39 or 40?
Yeah,
39. I was like,
you're just messing with him, right?
Yeah. Of course he knows. He knows.
I caught that.
All right. Well, I get a rare win in Name That Dude as the host. That doesn't usually happen.
That's a host win.
Host win. Rare host W. On our way out the door, just a reminder, you can join our Discord.
I'm gleaming red in shame on YouTube right now.
Just come talk trash to Trevor in the Discord. The link is in the show description. That's the best way to know that they see those messages. We are on our way to Dallas for the winter meetings. I hope everybody enjoys this episode. We'll have some shows each and every day. Hopefully lots of signings and trades. You never know what you're going to get when you go to the winter meetings. Sometimes it's just a bunch of baseball writers and baseball industry people staring at each other waiting for something to happen.
I think we'll get Soto. The rumors are getting pretty hot and heavy.
Come on. Oh, I'm holding Binky, by the way.
Get back to work.
name that dude. Good luck to So
gotta get back to work.
Back to dad duty for Trevor as well. But that's gonna do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We're back with you on Monday.